Okay, so welcome everybody to our podcast, Family Success Secrets. We're here today joined by Mr. Rob Gorski. He is a single father of three boys, all three on the autism spectrum. And he runs his household and takes care of homeschooling and does all the things that you would expect, right? But in addition, he's also a blogger and a podcaster that documents his journey. And today he's going to be with us to share some of the systems that he uses for success in his family. So, Rob, we want to thank you for joining us. Welcome to our podcast. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. Yeah, you're one of the first guys on our minds when we said, time to launch. Let's get Rob back over here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So,
thank you.
Yeah, right on. So can we get you, sir, to give us a little bit of your backstory? Give us a couple minutes on who you are, what you do, the family, whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. Well, as you said, I'm a single dad to three kids, all on the autism spectrum. My oldest just turned 21 and my youngest is 12 and my middle child is 14. They all fall in kind of different places. So everything is sort of different from kid to kid, which kind of increases the level of fun or challenge or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah. I started writing about 11 years ago now, I think. And my wife at the time had suggested that I get like a digital journal kind of thing just to help me kind of cope with all the stress that was happening, because I mean, I don't think anybody's born ready to kind of cope with all of this stuff. It's sort of a process, right? And I was struggling a little bit, and so I started writing this stuff on a WordPress.com blog, thinking that it was like this private thing where I could just say what I needed to say and walk away from it. Nobody would ever read it. It was completely like a diary or something, right? And turns out that I was wrong, and all kinds of people started to read it. And you know, over the last decade or so, it's just kind of grown into this thing where I've shared our journey, the good, the bad, you know, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. I've talked about everything, especially the stuff that doesn't make me look very good, because I think it's really important that people understand what this is like in real life. And you know, for the people who listen to the podcast or read the blog or follow me on social media, you know, they get this sense of sort of validation and comfort knowing that they're not the only person who feels a certain way or who is struggling with certain things. And I guess that's kind of my goal, to kind of provide comfort and guidance, kind of light the way for the people who are coming behind me. So.
Absolutely. That's so important. And I know on my journey, how many people like yourself have helped us, because we have also looked to those that have gone ahead of us.
Well, I was surprised to hear that you've been doing this for 10 years already, because that's a long time to be in the game doing this type of thing, because you normally think like, oh, this is what everybody started doing now, you know, since 2020 with the pandemic and whatnot, but you're well ahead of that curve.
Yeah, as far as I know, I was the first, or one of the first anyways, like dad bloggers who talked about these things, right? Because dads just tend to not talk about that. I think we've talked about that before. And you know, my goal is, like with the podcast this year, is I'm bringing a lot of dads on to kind of talk about their experience, because I hear from moms all the time, which, I mean, moms are awesome, but it's nice to hear from the dad's perspective too, because I think it helps everybody to kind of get a better understanding of what dads go through and what the moms go through. And then, you know, hopefully that gives a little bit of insight into what each other is kind of dealing with. And, you know, kind of helps people to, again, not feel so alone.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So we have our question that we like to ask of all of our guests. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Look at that. He's ready. So Can you share with us, our audience, a system that you would use or recommend to another family to help them to have, say, just a greater degree of success in any category? We focus on health, relationships, and finances primarily, but if there's something that falls outside of that, that's in your expertise, something that you're really good at, then what would you say to that?
I don't remember how the phrase goes. I don't know, when you're a master of
Jack of all trades, master of none.
trades and master of none. Yeah,
There we go.
that sort of sums me up. I think the one thing that I would recommend that I think kind of covers across the board is you have to be flexible, and you have to be able to adapt. My oldest was diagnosed in 2005, and so I've been doing this a while. And one of the things that I had to learn was that things aren't always going to be the way that they were set out to be. And whether it's finances, or whether it's my job, or it's just grocery shopping. I mean, just like everything in life, when you're in autism, especially as a parent, can kind of be in flux, and you have to be able to adapt at the last minute. Otherwise, you're like that the tree that just like fights against the wind and then just gets ripped out by the roots. Got to kind of ebb and flow, and go with the flow a little bit. But I have found that I need to be more flexible in order to accommodate the seemingly endless needs that my kids have, that never seem to be the same thing every day. And so I have to be prepared to kind of deal with things in the moment, knowing that it might work this time, but it's probably not going to work again, or it's certainly not going to work for all three of them at the same time. And so, I have to kind of adapt my approach. Like, I'm the only non-autistic person in my house, and so I'm kind of the odd man out, and that's challenging because I think differently than they do. They think differently than I do, and they see things differently than I do. And so I'm always having to kind of adapt between one kid to another, and yeah, three. It's only three, so I'm just I'm sure I lost track.
There you go.
But even like with dinners and making meals and things like that, I mean, like, I used to love cooking, and it got to the point where I couldn't cook one thing that everybody would eat, because everybody has these sensory needs, and one of them doesn't like certain colors and certain textures, and it just became really difficult. And so I had to adapt, and I got to a point where I just kept things in the house that everybody liked. And when it comes to dinner time, most of the time, everybody just kind of picks what they want. And if I have to cook it, I cook it. Or, I've taught them to cook, so they're cooking a lot of things on their own, supervised and safely. Wonderful. My youngest just learned how to cook on the grill the other day too. And so rather than do it the way that I want to do it, which is just to cook one thing and have it be like a balanced meal where everybody's getting the things that they need nutritionally, I have had to kind of stow that and do what works. And it kind of goes against the grain, because I can be stubborn, and I like things to be a certain way, but it just doesn't work. And I think I would have lost my mind by now, or more of my mind by now, if I hadn't learned to become flexible. And I think ultimately we expect our kids, we need our kids to be flexible too. We try and teach them that, hey, schedule changes, we've got to be able to adapt to that. And if we're not leading by example, then I mean, it kind of feels hypocritical, and I think it sets a bad tone.
Right. Well, where can we have our audience find you so they can learn more and read your blogs?
Sure. Super easy. It's just theautismdad.com, and links to the podcast and social media and everything are all right there. So super easy.
That's awesome. So it's awesome to have you here with us today. And this is just a snippet, though. We
That's
are
right.
definitely going to want to have you back so we can get some better understanding and dig a little deeper in some of the stuff that you do there for your family. So if you don't mind,
Yes.
we'd like to have you back here real soon.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank you.
we're really looking forward to it.
All
I always
right.
enjoy
Cool.
talking to you guys.
Thank
All
you
right.
for being here,
Thank you,
Rob.
sir.
Sure.